Dave Martin, Esports Global Fund. We are a new fund about to be listed, small in comparison to a number of the funds that are out there at this particular moment in time, but we're here for the whole of the esports ecosystem. We're looking at deal flow really from kind of those that are past the startup into kind of the Series A and beyond. And we're here to hopefully provide a level of smart capital and synergy between our portfolio that creates value for the investors and for the entrepreneurs.
Hi, I'm Spike. I've been in esports and the games industry for about eight years or so. Built a few businesses and launched a startup at the beginning of this year as well. And I'm a venture director here in London for Hiro Capital. We're a fund started by three very successful entrepreneurs, Cherry Freeman, Luke Alvarez, and Ian Livingston, who many of you will know is the sort of one of the grandfathers of the games industry as a whole. We're looking for games companies, studios, esports, digital sports, and the platforms around them, people building a sort of exciting future, and we want to invest in those people and help them get there.
Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Malte. I'm one of the three founding partners of BITKRAFT. BITKRAFT is a pure play venture capital fund for esports companies. All of the three founding partners have been in esports for a long time, including my partner Jens, who's been one of the godfathers of the industry. We have a lot of fun helping the ecosystem to strive, really setting the right boundaries, setting the right tone, and then obviously backing the right people in the space. That's what we actually be doing with the fund. We invest typically larger seed rounds, Series A, Series B on a global basis. We're based out of San Francisco, LA, London, and Berlin, and essentially have a great time working with fantastic entrepreneurs and helping them. All three of the partners have been entrepreneurs themselves, which obviously is a great attraction for us to work with the next generation entrepreneurs and share a little bit of the wisdom we've been accumulating over the years, and also sharing a little bit of the mistakes we made over the years, and helping strive and bring new businesses to market.
Hi, I'm Amit Jain. I'm the founder and CEO of Cascade Global. We are a multi-family office. We started a venture fund in esports, committed a certain amount, and looking for more growth stage investments in esports. So far, we have done one key investment. We own a team, and now we are continuing to look for more opportunities in the sector and more along the lines of growth stage companies.
Fantastic. So looking at the current opportunities that you're seeing in esports, you've all got very different business models as to how you find the deals. So how are you going out and looking for them? How do you find your sort of next new investments? Should we start with Spike?
Well, I guess I'm very fortunate. I've got a good network in esports, having been in it for a little while, knowing who's doing what's going on, how things are happening. So I think the esports industry is a really great industry in that it's sort of small enough right now from the companies that are springing up and business ideas. There's some really good stuff out there that you kind of sort of know what's happening and what's not, which is really, really good.
Yeah, and I guess compared to sort of Amit, where you've got more of a family office approach, how do you find new deals, or how are you looking to find new deals?
I believe it's again same, the connection in the industry, knowing the whole ecosystem, little bit active in the investment scenario as well, and in general, it's still I believe very small industry as such, specifically in Europe, where everybody who is looking for money knows how to find people with money. I think that's been more of the case there. I've been getting more, I believe, referrals and just people randomly reaching out, knowing that, okay, we are one of the players in esports. Yeah. And
is it sort of the same for Dave, for Malte?
Yeah. I mean, for me, a couple of things. Absolutely, it's about the network. It's about having the synergies with the right people. Bringing in Chester King as our entrepreneur in residence has obviously helped greatly. But I also think, I did this in fintech for a period of time. I think that we're, as mentioned, we're at a stage now where it's not a hugely competitive environment in terms of where we are. There's deal flow to go round, and there's synergies within that deal flow whereby partners can work together. So I think that, genuinely, as you look across the stage, the individuals here, although we haven't, finding the time to sit and talk is quite difficult, but actually there's an openness across the group to say, well, look, let's share our knowledge and understanding and bring it to bear for the ecosystem as a whole. So, that's what I find exciting about it. Whereas, having done this in other areas before, it can get, incredibly intense and everybody's looking for the first deal and wants to lock everybody out. I think we're in a different scenario at this particular moment in time.
Do you agree?
Yeah, for us, it's a lot about our network of companies. So over the life of our team, we invested into 60 esports companies, which is a small number to other industries. For esports, I think it's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
And that is, for us, a big filter, obviously, to the world of esports. Is a big source of inspiration. It's a big source of referrals. Working with our entrepreneurs and the founders behind such companies is really getting most of those deals, which is half of the deals we actually do and coming through that network. That is typically stuff that is not seeing the market in that sense. It's something which we get people we worked with in the past, second-time guys, third-time guys. Obviously, don't want to disencourage the first-time guys at all. Please keep doing it and keep hitting hard. And that's a big source of our inside, the referral network, and then obviously the reference value too, right? And then we have a lot of bigger, not specialized funds, like we co-invested with Sequoia, we co-invested with Li Ka-shing, we co-invested with other bigger guys who sort of use us as their filter to esports and call us with whatever else they are seeing, saying, you guys are smaller and earlier, can you come and validate because we are interested in the bigger stuff. That's sort of the other bigger source of deal flow we've seen.
Amazing. So given that you've invested in 60 companies, we've got a team investment here, I know both your companies are looking at lots of different areas in esports. Sort of, what does a company have to do to grab your attention? What would make you say yes to a company rather than passing on the opportunity?
Happy to take that, if you don't mind?
Go for it.
Please.
Okay. I think, interestingly, I think the pipe we're seeing at the moment is about three. We're very early, by the way. We're about to place our first investments, but we've seen about $300 million US in terms of pipe. And what we see a lot is the kind of Newzoo and other figures played out on size of sector. This is the sector. This is the sector to get into. You should invest in this sector. There are multiples. I think it'd be interesting actually just to roll that back a little bit and go to kind of the kind of what's the problem. What problem is it you're trying to solve? What's the potential of that marketplace with the problem that you're trying to solve? And these are really, really important things. And then what the product is that solves that, and then who are you as people? Because I think we're all interested in those kind of things. We need to know, what is it you're fixing? Because if you're fixing something, that's great, because we think there's a market. Then how big is that market? How does your product fit within that market? And then who are you as people? I mean, one of the big decisions we come to when we invest is the people side of things. Yeah. What are they like? What journey have they been on? Where are they going to?
I think that's really interesting what Dave says, actually. So coming from ESL, and the mentality of the guys there, and who I have the most respect for what they have really built over the last 20 years, is this mentality, and in esports in general, I'm sure many people who are endemic from the industry would agree of. It's sort of they've been doing it themselves this whole time, right? It's sort of like, okay, cool, we're going to run a tournament, great. We need to build the computers. Now we need to do a broadcast. How do we do that? Let's figure it out. Let's put a camera here. Let's do that, right? We need to pay the players. How do we do that? I don't know. Let's pay the players, right? Now we need to. Really everything's been done sort of as on the fly as they go. And esports is built. One of the reasons of its strengths is because it's had that kind of let's just get on and do it attitude. what's really interesting for the industry today, as someone who's so passionate about the industry, but also now coming in from an investment side, is there's this sort of professionalization. There's this distilling of, all right, now you don't have to do everything. Now, there's an opportunity here that's been underserved because we just haven't had the bandwidth to deal with that. Great, let's now go and focus on that. And someone's going to build a business around that. And there's another area. Now let's try and build a business about that. So it's almost like one of my favorite quotes about Ralph Reichert is that he hasn't just built a company, he's sort of built an industry. And now it's this great opportunity for other people to come along and to fill in the gaps and to professionalize and to crystallize esports, which that's the great opportunity now, I think, for me as an investor, to find those people that want to do that and then take esports to the next level.
Yeah. So I think we were talking earlier about different investment approaches. So, we've mentioned here that there's so many different ways of looking at it, and it's sometimes the people, or it's the problem that they're solving, or it's the next sort of iteration of where the market's going. Amit, you mentioned you look at sort of more top-down approach. Is there a part of that value chain in esports, whether it be the service providers, whether it be the teams, whether it be the players? Where do you see that sort of next sector in the esports space as being a really interesting one for you?
I think for me, again, tech and services, that's the one sector which I'm more interested in. Tech, particularly related to analytics, data, performance sector. Those are something for me is more interesting. We, as our philosophy, as I think we were talking earlier as well, we like to come in a project where we can make a difference and we can take it through all the way versus a traditional VC or that type of approach. So I want to be in a project where I know that it's not going to be an endless cash burning, or it's not going to be an ongoing infrastructure type of a project where you can just, or you're competing with the very big players with endless money. Those are not the key, interest area for me, where I know that there is a definite goal. I can come in with the money I have behind me and I can take it through. That's really more for me as a top-down approach, where I would like to participate in an opportunity where I know that there's a team has some track record of execution or delivery, and I can complement them and add all the missing elements to take them to success.
Yeah. And then Malte, so if you look at the 60 companies that you've already invested in, and maybe some of the new companies that you're about to add to the portfolio, do they all center around one specific theme? Are they all cross value chain? Where do they mainly sit?
Yeah, I mean, we try to cluster it for us. Obviously, obviously every investor has a certain taste for what they are looking for in terms of the thesis and stuff. For us, we clustered 3 buckets. One of which is the underlying games IP. So we invest in studios that trying to build esports games, which we think is obviously the biggest opportunity in the space, because you create a new discipline of a sport. I'm not saying it's easy, but we keep trying, and obviously you need to have enough tries with the right guys and the right people there. Secondly, towards Amit's point, the entire tech stack. We're big fans of the value creation opportunity there that spans from server, networking, game engine, middleware, B2C, B2B, engagement tools, data solutions, streaming, which essentially enhances the experience in esports for players, viewers, streamers, and so on and so forth, which we call platforms and technologies, which also is sort of a more peripheral lens for us than only the core of what we see right now. So we invested in one of the leading haptics companies, who enables HD haptics, right, which is a new sensory dimension to gaming, right, which is a big new paradigm shift, which can be, that company can easily be a couple billion in just having the biggest haptics opportunity, and then haptics being employed across the board, not only esports, but they use esports essentially as their pinnacle, as their lighthouse to get in and then scale from there. So this is what we like a lot. So we invested in a networking company who sort of enables high quality real-time internet, which is still a big struggle for gaming. Obviously, it's a way bigger opportunity than only gaming, but esports is sort of the highest requirement right now. That's why those guys going after esports to start with, and then they branch out into other things like high frequency trading, remote surgery, video conference, and something like that. And the third bucket, which we think is largely overlooked, and we have a very peripheral view there, and a lot of people raise their eyeballs if we announce another deal in that space, is the lifestyle opportunity around esports. For us, esports is only like this pinnacle of almost like a generational change on a completely different lens towards lifestyle, and why an entire generations do what they do in many different dimensions, right? That is, how media has been consumed, how media has been distributed, how media has been even produced, with the technology opportunity, the social opportunity around it. So we feel like there is a massive opportunity where you essentially have esports intersecting with other lifestyle segments, where we can essentially drive, because we have very unfair advantages when it comes to distribution, marketing, having the right channels and partners there, but really leveraging out to much, much bigger addressable market size outside of the core of the esports opportunity. That's sort of the three things we sort of structured for ourselves, and we trying to go after, and we try to package into our themes here.
Awesome. Okay, so one question to the sort of whole panel. As investors yourselves, and looking on behalf of the company, there's been a lot of debate in the industry about multiples and what the values are, and what the potential exit plan is for investors. So how do you see the exits for some of these investments that you're making, and how are you seeing the sort of fair multiples in the marketplace, in the industry?
Well, I'll answer the easy bit, the second half. I think that, any sort of venture, sort of what, the valuations and the way that, the way that things are working is interesting. There is a lot of signal to noise ratio. I think the signal's pretty low compared to a lot of noise out there. I think there is an aspect of the industry which is people who have, heard this sort of esports buzz. They want to get in, they think, great, let's pivot something, or let's create something and try and bring some value into it. And that's very easy to sniff out. That's very easy to, it just doesn't hold up very well. And then again, we were talking earlier a little bit about the difference between sort of the European landscape, that more sort of conservative, sort of more grounded, perhaps, approach to investment that exists in Europe, versus where actually a lot of the action is right now, which is on the West Coast or in America, where it really is, this idea of venture capital really is something that's sort of, almost nearly gotten out of control. But the way that companies are being valued there is a completely different beast to how things are being valued over here. And it's about, I think, our job, and whether we're good at it or not, I don't know. But our job is to actually try and actually understand what the value is, what the opportunity is, and to help educate those people to get to something a bit more realistic.
So David, should we go to you for the hard part of the question? So how are you seeing the exits for the investment? So let's say the first one that you're going into, what are you going to be looking for to exit, and what are the strategies for exit available to the esports industry?
Well, we're incredibly early, but part of the conversation we have with every one of them is, kind of, what's your plan? What does it look like? Where are you going to go with this? We're seeing quite an interesting split, really. Some going for looking at IPO, some looking at, and we're working with one at the moment that will list. Some of them looking at M&As. But I think the truth is, I think we're getting to a point where there's a bit of work to be done for the entrepreneurs and understanding where the best options lie for them. Because at the moment, some of the answers are just simply, well, one or the other, not necessarily a defined route in terms of what they want to do. For our fund and the way our fund's structured, we are looking at organisations that, if we're going to place investment with them over a period of time, that we'll be looking for them to look for an exit, because of course that's how our investment's going to run and continue to grow and to continue to thrive. So in the early stages for us, it's a bit of a mix really at this moment in time.
And maybe, yeah.
Let's, as far as I think the multiples and valuation, maybe Malte will be a better guy, or he did most deals than any of us here. But as far as when it comes to, my assessment, I really look at is there any opportunity to be the market leader in this particular, category? again, the experience and capability of the team and how disruptive the idea is. These are the few areas which at least gets me excited about whatever valuation we see. Sometimes, and I've seen very, strange valuation. And sometimes when you are just, there's no even revenue plan or no forecast, how do you define any multiple? Then it really comes down the idea, people behind it, and the overall, the possibility of being the, disruptive or market leader there. As far as exit goes, our philosophy is slightly different in that, because we don't have any, third-party money where we have to move on to the next fund or we have to deliver certain kind of ROI. We are more long-term players in it, and I would essentially, IPO would be more of my preference if it can be, okay? But I still feel it's too early right now to say exit in esports company, investments when they're still struggling on monetization or really clear revenue path. So I don't think even for a lot of ideas or startups, I believe they'll be acquired by the people in parallel industries. If a traditional sports wants to come into esports or likes of similar type of opportunities where somebody would just come and acquire an idea, somebody who's already done or executed at some level. Mm-hmm. So you will see a lot of M&A of that sort. But I don't know how many of them will end up seeing an IPO and all. But that's something that would be my preference as our group here.
Sure. So Malte, if we look at your portfolio of companies, so you've got 60 odd in the esports sector. How would the returns differ from other sectors that you might be looking at? Do they tend to be higher because it's a little bit unclear, or
other sectors outside of esports?
Yeah.
I'm the wrong guy because we only do esports. Like a little bit like this. Obviously, we know a little bit about what other funds are doing and sort of stuff. I mean, when it comes to valuation, obviously valuation is always an art. It's hardly a science ever. And it has a lot to do with obviously risk and return profile to what we are looking at, right? And so, like, if you take away a lot of the risk because we know the team, right? We've been just signing a term sheet with a team we've been knowing for 15 years. It's a very, very different story as if you come across a new guy we've never seen before. We don't know what their past work is and that sort of stuff. It's a massive game changer. That's a difference between a 10 million and 100 million valuation, seriously. On top of the question on what's the vision, right? Is that a case that changes the paradigm? Is it a case that can, like whatever, the haptics thing, yeah, you can easily see this being in the billions, no problem, right? There's other stuff which, like, people go after much smaller problems to solve, and with that, obviously, much lower exit valuations there. And then you also, we try to reasoning backwards to saying, okay, if this works out and you deliver to plan, and you'd be striving in competition and so on and so forth, you're getting to X in terms of the pool. And then from the pool, you take a share, and then from the share, you're going to be able to return that sort of money if you perform like on track, and then there's a lot of unknowns. That's the known unknowns, right? And then so you start out trying to reasoning backwards, and that is also a little bit of a risk and reward sharing discussion, saying, as an entrepreneur, and we totally understand the entrepreneur wants to make money, right? We are a fund. We also need to make money because we're carrying a lot of that risk. So typically we're the big guys with the bigger money, and the founder comes in, yes, with his time and dedication and love to the thing. But the big downside on losing the money, that's sort of on us. And that is a question on fairness then to say, okay, how do we model this? And we typically run very sophisticated models around it. And then we sit around the table with the founder saying, listen, let's go through the assumptions here, right? What do you think? And those guys come in and say, yeah, it's a 10 billion company. We look at this, fine, great. I mean, there's nothing better than that. Just tell us how. Tell us how we get there. Let's think about the risk involved there, and how do we share risk and upside, and then we reason backwards and say, okay, does that make sense? Does that feel right to you if we come in with that valuation? Because the model goes both ways, and that is a fair sort of sort of deal then. And that typically is for us the art there to like look in people's eyes and to see it in their eyes, right? And they feel like comfortable with what we do. So we're not crazy on valuations really right now. I mean, largely because people see also a lot of things other than money in us. I mean, largely they don't come for money to us. They're more like for the expertise and the people and what we've done in the past. And then yes, we need to find fair deals. But we're more like bigger seed round, Series A, averages out for us at 15 million right now. So it's not like the crazy numbers. But I mean, we also tell them very clearly, if you're looking for the highest number, we're probably the wrong guys. And then if you want to find whatever, not want to sound negative, you're looking for the highest number with dumb money, yeah, sure, go do it. It's your life. And you let the people into your boardroom you're looking for, and you can see what those guys may or may not be contributing, right?
So if we look at the viewing audience of esports, who might be interested in esports as an avenue to invest, how could sort of Joe Public invest in esports? You've got hedge funds and large capital behind you, but how could I make a high street investment?
This is teeing you up quite nicely, Malte, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I want to just...
Here's one we did earlier.
There's something going on here.
There's no background dealings here. I happen to have a solution, just as a coincidence. No, seriously, we had the opportunity because that was one of those questions we had around us as founders all the time. Because I mean, we got this massive community out there of people who really put this, their entire life behind esports, playing, watching, whatever they are doing, right? And nobody actually offers them an instrument to take, a financial upside there. And that always sort of struck us. And then obviously knowing a little bit about esports, we've also been trying to play in the public markets, and we found it to be hard. Even though we know and we made some money, to be honest, yes. But it wasn't easy at all, and it was not mass market as a product. So we partnered up. We found a team which had the same idea in New York and in San Francisco. It's a company called Roundhill Investments, and they'd done an ETF, an exchange-traded fund, which only does esports investments. We put our name and our money behind it, partnered up with those guys, brought it to public and New York Stock Exchange. So that is ticker symbol NERD, just in case.
But not in the UK. You can't invest it in the UK. It's,
yeah, it depends. They still inching up to the right platforms, but that's sort of the vision to give the Joe of esports an opportunity to also participate in the financial success of the industry.
But isn't it? I think that's really cool, and
yeah.
It's one of the things that I think the BITKRAFT guys have shown some really forward thinking on there. And what other industries right now could you do that, right? And do something like that, and really, get the community, this big community of people could really say, wow, I now have an opportunity to get into something like that, which I just think is just testament to our industry and how cool it is.
100%.
But I think to that point, that is where, like, when we partnered up with the two founders to put the nerd thing up, this is where we offered them obviously money, but we offered them the access to that community to say, we can really enable you because we can plug you in A, B, C, and D in terms of distribution on the retail side, because ETFs are typically distributed on the institutional side a lot. That's what those guys are like for. And on the retail side, there's not much happening. There was one part of the innovation of that is marketing innovation, really, to say, how do we plug in our B2C channels into an ETF and make it a retail product? Now, easy bite size for Joe out there, right? Playing his game, and then, by the way, also putting some money behind his mouth door in esports because he believes in esports. Because millennials, what we found is they put a lot of the money behind their beliefs and what they really do and love. Obviously, esports is one of the top things they are really after. And giving them the investment opportunity back to it's pretty much a lifestyle thing for us. So we put it in the lifestyle bucket. Hashtag finance, right? To say, this is to be out there to be distribution. And this is where we came into the team and saying, they've been doing ETFs in the past. They've been in, institutional distribution and so on and so forth. But we added essentially the B2C component. So it's saying, we feel we can bring it out to 400 million sort of fans out there, right? Which changes the game of the entire ETF industry, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay, so a bit of advice to maybe some of those in the audience that are looking to fundraise at the moment. What is one of the biggest mistakes that you see from either investment documents that come to you or pitches that you hear that just turn you off instantly? Maybe we start with David.
I think it comes back to the point I made earlier, really, is, and it's kind of coming out quite a lot in this conversation at the moment, which is not to focus too hard on the kind of, this is the next big thing, you should be investing in the next big thing. FinTech, there's a lot of lessons to learn from, overvalued organizations that went off the back of 30, 40x valuations, but just because they had a tech play without really kind of understanding how big the market was or how big the competitor market was or who was coming into the market. So for me, I've seen a few decks that just really say, this is a great opportunity, big opportunity, you should get into it. We're valued at 10 million, with not a lot of data behind it. And sometimes you get through that and you get to the next conversation. But we get so many decks, sometimes you're looking for somebody to say, like I said before, right, okay, here is the problem, here is the potential, here is the product, and this is us, and this is how we can actually achieve it really quick, so that when I look at it, I can go, okay, that's got my attention. If it starts with 4 or 5 slides of how big the sector is, it starts to turn me off quite quickly because it feels like you're trying to sell me the sector rather than the problem. Now, we all know the sector and we know the opportunity. So we're looking on that side of things. The other part of it is when it comes down to getting down to things like equity play and stake. So sometimes it's okay to say, I was having this conversation earlier, it's okay to say you need a certain amount of money to execute the business and the transaction. But when you're asking, to do that and you want, in effect, us to take a gamble and a risk in terms of that, and it's the risk and reward element, offering 5 or 10% on that kind of opportunity just isn't going to work for us. And if you're prepared then to enter in that negotiation, or you're perhaps less fixed in terms of your percentage, that then opens us up and makes us more comfortable and warmer to the fact that you're actually on a journey here. You actually believe in your product, the longevity of your product, and prepared to go on, the raise round and the process. So that's really the big thing for us.
How about you, Amit?
Yeah, I think David has, quite summarized. That's been some of the problem I have seen in some of the decks that lot trying to sell the hype of esports versus the real the concept or idea is. And sometimes ideas are not even explored or developed fully, and the price tag of 10 million or 8 million or raising $500,000 at a valuation of 10 million. Yeah, I'm not interested for that type of investment. Even though I know that esports, again, it's very early stage, you can't really predict the 3 to 5 years plan. But still, I would like to see still some more detailed on the numbers, whereas there's just no substance and there is a hypothetical, valuation, or I'm going to monetizing a play per user or per eyeball $25, whereas even Facebook can't monetize that type of, or any, many other parallels in the industries, they cannot monetize at that level. So that's one problem I've seen. Sometimes it's just, again, because of your personal passion or something you want to do, finding a solution without identifying the problem. That's also I have noticed in some of the areas. And lastly is, for me, as again, I can say personally, I would like to know more about the team who is executing behind, who is, it's less about the idea or a concept, because it's a lot evolves in an evolving industry. Today you started with a concept, tomorrow it may not be same, by the time you are down 2 years or 3 years. So do you have a team who has the capabilities, who has the means to evolve, who has the capabilities to execute and deliver in a timely manner? That's otherwise you end up burning a lot of money, and that's one fear I do have for the industry in general, that a lot of investors will get in on the hype of this esports investment, and they will burn their hands very soon, and then everybody will get to a level of, okay, are we going through another crypto bubble? So it's something as an advice, develop your ideas fully. Let's give it enough thinking before starting to raise money.
And this is open to the panel. So what one company are you super excited about? Where are you seeing like, yeah, I'm going all in on this next company? So here's time to plug some of the investments.
It's simple for me. It's Vitality for me.
Of course.
So my answer is very clear and straight right now, and I really believe in my investment there. But so I think these guys would have more, to add or say there. Yeah.
I'd love to talk about some of the 4 investments we're making next month, but I have to keep my mouth shut, unfortunately, for once.
Mysterious, I like it.
I mean, obviously, with having so many, kids in our esports portfolio, it's always hard to tell which one you love the most. I mean, we obviously try to give them all the love we can and help them with any dimension. And it's just fantastic guys. So it's really hard to, and they're very different by nature, right? So you see something in one, and you see something very different in another, and it's all very, very cool and creates a lot of value there. So there's no clear answer to one of those guys.
David?
Equally to be mysterious. But actually for me, I'm excited about the synergies that are being created in our investment portfolio. That's the bit that actually excites. I'm not a financier. That's not my background. My background is picking winners, so to speak, and try not
great background.
Try not to be in that situation, which is the standard situation, which is the 1 in 10, right? And you have 5 that fail, 1 that succeeds, and 4 they call the living dead, which is you put money into them but they never return, and those kind of things. So we're trying to do that. But what we're also trying to do within our portfolio is say, okay, and it doesn't exclude other players from being part of that, but it's how do we kind of cross-fertilize these relationships for the benefit of the entrepreneurs and the businesses, but also for the portfolio overall. So that's the bit that actually really excites me at the moment, this bit that we've got. So it's not necessarily one of them, it's how that one plugs into another and potentially plugs into another.
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. So one of the audience questions was, other than just the money, the capital that you can put behind, what value add do you give to these companies? So for you, it's sort of the synergies between the portfolio, but for the rest of the panel, what value are you adding extra on just top of the capital that can help them expand?
I think big part of what we help with is recruiting. I mean, since we've been so long in esports, we know a lot of the people. We know their past performances. We know who's great at doing some sort of job, and so being able to also help them bring in good stress-tested people into companies. And after all, it's only about people, it's only about delivery, only about execution sort of stuff. And that typically helps if you have a guy who exactly fits that challenge and he's available and you know how you can move him from A to B. That is quite an asset we offer. Secondly, obviously, the portfolio synergies, you talked about that one. I mean, this is quite obvious, and that's actually one of our criteria in investing, is thinking like, okay, how can we be actually helping through the portfolio integration and be able to accelerating with what we have here. And that is partnerships in business development, that is technology integrations to make something more easy or more faster sort of stuff. Then marketing and distribution. I mean, we have a wealth and the depth of relationships in the various marketing partners, whether it's teams or whether it's leagues or whether it's influencers or different publisher, where we have very significant inroads and long-standing relationships. We can easily dial people in and get them integrated or get them a deal or facilitate even a deal. That's, I think, where we can be letting value. On the exit side of things, obviously, we were pretty much dialed in on the strategics who potentially then buying such companies. We have a very long-standing network with the private equity guys who naturally one of those guys who could follow on and buy such companies out. And then with our nerd, we also have quite some footprint in the public market side of things. Also our LPs, the limited partners behind BITKRAFT, they're large in the public market ecosystem. They have big appetite for bringing something to market, and it's obviously very helpful to knowing that prior in helping to set this up in the right way.
For sure.
So that's sort of the angles.
And I think, Amit, we discussed this earlier,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have invested in Team Vitality unless you thought there was a real value add from your side.
Precisely. I think that's in our case, when a couple of years back when I started looking into esports, and my approach was first that, okay, if I start investing, what value I bring into these companies beyond the money. And that's where we started with the idea of, again, top-down approach. I said, let's start with a team where I think that's the centerpiece for a lot of esports, where you get a lot of learning, you have some tangibles or intangible beyond money to offer. And I think that's where my group's thinking is at this point, that we have been almost 9 months or a year with the Team Vitality. We are at the level where we understand this, things very well. We are building the whole infrastructure around Vitality, and I say next, coming years or that will be the focus to invest in the opportunities which are complementary or where I can add value. At end of the day, being our own money, we handpick opportunities, but idea to take them to the end goal or an exit or success. So therefore, it's more important for me to pick those type of investment or opportunities where I can offer them a lot more than just the money.
Sure. And Spike, final word from you?
Look, I think if my economics teacher knew what I was doing now, he'd have a heart attack when it's on the investment side. I think from game studios, everyone knows who Ian Livingston is. Everyone knows what he can bring. He's an angel investor right now in 40 different games companies, hugely successful, some of them right now. Esports, I've been fortunate enough to be working in it for a little bit on 3 continents, in fact, living and working in different countries and building different parts of the ecosystem. And as Malte said very well, sort of opening the doors for people, helping them get to the right people, helping them understand, giving them expertise is absolutely what we love to do. So hopefully we can help out a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses over the next years and help build a really strong and robust esports ecosystem.
Fantastic. Well, we've got 9 new opportunities being presented to us later today at the Clutch, so I think we're all looking forward to that.
Very excited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.